recording. Okay, hello and welcome to Python lesson 1. Right, and I'm gonna share my screen also. Application screens. Screen. Okay, well done. Okay, nice. Okay, so once you have opened your PyCharm, just click File, New Project, then create whatever in whatever folder you want. So I'll call this lesson 1, and this will be our project. Okay, so before you click create, you configure your virtual environment. Okay, so this is the location of your project's interpreter or the venv basically. So it should match your project folder also. So in this case is personal stuff, Python classes, lesson 1, then the folder is called venv. So it stands for virtual environment. Okay, then at the bottom here it says base interpreter. So this is basically your root Python executable. Okay, so usually it's in the Python, program files, then Python 3.7 or 3.8 if you have 3.8 lah. Okay, then inside the folder you have python.exe. So just use this as your base interpreter. This one, no need to care. If you wanna, actually, no need to take anything. Okay, so once you have set up your virtual environment, click create. Okay, so then if you expand, then you will see a venv library root. Okay, so this is your interpreter for the project itself. And you open up, then you can see all the libraries also. But you don't need to care about this. You can just leave the venv alone. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let me follow my lesson plan. Okay, great. Okay, so first, we will cover the basics. Okay, so I will create a new text file for this basics.txt. Okay, so what is Python? Okay, in general, what is programming? Okay, so basically is to have instructions that your computer can execute. Okay, so different technologies can achieve this differently. Okay, so like in a compiled language like Java or the C family is the compiler will compile the source code, which is basically what you have written all your code into an executable, something like a binary, or in the case of Java, it's actually bytecode. Okay. Okay, so now what is Python? Python is considered an interpreted language. Okay, so what does interpreted mean? Okay, so an interpreted language has an interpreter which in of itself is also a program. Okay, so this interpreter program will take the source code and how to say, translate it or pass it into something that an intermediate that the interpreter understands and then executes it. Okay, or better to sorry.
What's the meaning of parse?
Pass, that means translate lah. So it translates it into something that it understands.
Oh, okay.
Okay, or actually a better way to put it is the interpreter will try to understand the source code and will execute it. Okay, so actually, sorry, I was wrong. There is no intermediate like a binary or something. So it's just the source code. Let me type at the bottom. So in Python is source code. Then immediately when you run the interpreter, it will execute it. Okay, so there is no .exe or whatever like in other languages. Okay, so in other languages, the workflow, or I should say in compiled languages, the workflow is source code to binary or bytecode. So bytecode is basically a more computer readable form of code. So it's not exactly ones and zeros. It's still sort of like code somewhat. Yeah, let me. Okay. But is more understandable by the computer. So that's bytecode lah, basically. It's not pure binary lah. Basically, that's bytecode. Okay, so then after bytecode, you can run the executable. Okay, so that one you have to run yourself. Okay, so basically is two separate steps. First, you have to compile. Is a compilation step into the executable. Then when you have the executable, then you run it in a suitable runtime. Okay, so an example, what is this? Okay, an example is in Java, you have your JVM, which is basically your Java virtual machine, which is basically like a special environment for the Java runtime. So you can run your code or you can run your compiled Java code in the JVM. Okay, but in Python, since it's a direct link from source code to execution, we don't need any runtime. Okay, so that's the basics. Okay, then I've already gone through how to create a new project. So just click new project. Then after that, you have this section called the project interpreter. And so you have to configure this also. But I already showed you how to configure. Okay. And okay, so I've already explained the differences between between interpreter and compiler. Okay, so now let's move on to the first lesson. Okay, so what I want you to do now is create a new Python file. Then call it data types. No need to put the .py. Okay, so just press enter. Okay, so just for your information, Python source code is in files with extension .py. So any .py file is a Python file. Okay. So I have my data types.py. Okay. So firstly, I want to explain the different types of data types and also the type system of Java. Sorry, I mean of Python. Okay, sorry. Okay, so Python is dynamically typed. What it means that Python can automatically convert for you the variable type, and also types in Python is very flexible. Okay, so that's what it means by dynamically typed. Okay, and also dynamically and weakly typed. Weak typing means that it's not very, it doesn't enforce. Weak typing means it doesn't enforce type rules. Okay, so what are type rules is something like type conversion. So it doesn't impose very strict rules. Okay, unlike Java or the C family, which are strongly and also statically typed. So static means not very flexible. Okay, so there are pros and cons to both this type of language, dynamic and weak, and also strong and static. Okay, but I will not cover that today. You can read up on that on your own. But one thing I'll say is Python runs slower than compiled languages and also strongly and dynamically typed languages. Okay, so why is this? Because okay, so firstly is the binary is easy to understand by the computer. So execution time is much faster. And also, next thing is strongly typed languages have lesser effort of like trying to catch errors, like typing errors. Okay, so the runtime overhead is significantly lower. Okay, so overhead, that means it's just buffer for the runtime. Okay, understand? Okay, so let me explain what it means by catching errors. Okay, so if a language is strongly and why I type this one?
Okay.
Okay, this is static, not dynamic. I write wrong. Okay, so if a language is strongly and statically typed, is how to say is catched. The error is catched at compile time. So what does compile time mean? Compile time is when you compile the source code. Okay, so remember the workflow for compiled language is compilation into binary, and then after that is execution. So if at the compilation step you already catch the error and you don't run the thing, then you are saving time. And also if there is an error during compilation, then the binary won't even come out. You won't have the binary. It will only compile if it is error free. Okay? So this one ensures your code safety also. Okay? So why is it slower or why is it worse in interpreted languages? Okay, so remember there is only one step, just this one, interpretation. After interprets already, is immediately execute. Okay, so if there is no intermediate step, right, and there is a fatal error, that will cause a lot of problems when you try to run it. Okay, so that's the difference. Yeah. Okay. So okay, I'll leave the comments in. Right. Okay, so how to declare comments in Python is the hash or the pound symbol. You no need to put a space, but it's just nicer to look at. Okay. Typo in word catched. Bruh. Okay, never mind. Okay, so now to data types. Okay, so the first type is, or the first, how to say? Okay, the first type of data types you encounter is called the basic, or more proper term is primitive types. Okay, so this includes wait, is string a data type? So str Python str primitive. Okay, correct. Yeah. Okay, so string, int, float, and boolean. Okay, so these are the primitive types. Okay, so there's another type is called reference type, or non-primitive lah, basically. So these are your objects. Okay, so Python is also object oriented, but is not as strict as Java or C#. Okay, so I will cover OOP in Python in another lesson, in a future lesson. Okay, so objects, list, which are like your arrays in other languages. Then there's also dictionary. Okay, and there's also a set, and also a tuple. Okay, so I'll cover what all these are later. Okay, so how do you declare a variable? Okay, so how you declare a variable is just type the name of the variable, like my var. Okay, so actually I will do this in the Pythonic way. Okay, so the Pythonic way, or like the convention is in Python is each word is separated by underscore, and there are no capital letters. I mean, the camel case, which is a convention in Java, is still accepted. But this one is the convention in Python. Okay. So how you declare is you type the name of the variable, then you put equal sign, and then the value. Okay, so example, this one is 10. Okay. So the difference in Python and other languages is that you cannot declare a variable without initializing the value also. Cause if you just put this one, you just put the variable name, right? Then you will throw an error, correct? Unresolved reference. Okay, so you need to put the equal sign and the value. Okay, like that. Okay, so this is an integer. So an int is an integer, like that. Okay, so integer is a whole number value. There's also float values or floating point numbers. Basically, is a decimal. So example, 5.5. Okay. If you try to initialize, oh wait, never mind. Sorry. Yeah, is again is dynamically typed. Okay. So there is also no type notation like C# or Java. So you don't put int here. There is no such thing is syntax error. So it's just the variable name, assignment operator, then the value. Okay. So int, float. There is no double, there is no long. Okay. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Okay. So this is a string. So it's denoted by double or single quotes. Both are fine. And you can type in whatever you want. Okay. Then boolean is just a true or false value. Okay, so the difference in Python is they must start with a capital letter. So example for true is capital T, then like that. Okay, if you put a small t, doesn't work. It's not highlighted. And there, it will show an error, unresolved reference. Okay, so must be capital letter or can also be false. So also is a capital F. Okay. Okay, another value that another value that a variable can take is also none. Like that. So none means just is no value, like that. Is equivalent to null in other languages. Okay, or undefined. Okay. So this is the same as null. Okay. Okay, now on to reference types. Okay, so we will cover objects at a later date. So I'll be going through the other four. Okay, so how you create a list is the square brackets. So you just put square brackets. Then within the square brackets, you put all your elements inside. So like 1, hello, 2, none, 2. Okay, so one thing you'll notice is that in a Python list, the elements can have different types. So this is an integer. Then after you see a string, then a bool, then it is none, then another integer. Yeah. Okay, so the Python list doesn't have the limitation of all elements need to have the same type. So in Python, elements in the list can have different types. Okay, next dictionary. Okay, so dictionary is used with curly brackets and is basically a bunch of key value pairs. Okay, so it's like a dictionary or like a phone book like that. Okay, so there is a key which can be of any type. So example, I say 1, type a colon. Then after the colon is your value. So example, the value I can put D, I don't know, whatever. Okay. And so the keys and values can take on different types also. And also all the key value pairs don't have to share the same types also. So the next pair I can put a string key and also a boolean value like that. This will work. Okay. So how you separate each pair is a comma. Okay. So if you can hear some background noise. Okay. Next is a set. Okay. So a set. I mean, we also don't. We rarely use sets. We just use list or dictionary or even a tuple. Okay. So a set is also curly brackets, and each element is separated by comma. So example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. They can also be different values.
妈咪有 muted， 妈咪有 muted， 你讲啊。以前
Sorry, that's my mom. Okay. Can. Okay, so there's a set. Okay. Then after that, the last is a tuple. Okay. So tuple is a normal bracket, is a parenthesis. Then also likewise, it has elements that can be different type, separated by comma. Okay. So now let me explain the differences between list, set, and tuple, since they are all so similar. Okay, so first, a tuple. Okay, so first is list is mutable. What does mutable mean? That means the values can change, and it will change the whole list itself. The yeah. Okay, so example is if I have test equals to 1, 2, 3. Okay. Then what I can say is there's a method for a list called test dot append. So append just adds an element to the end of a as a list little. Okay, whatever. Yeah, I think cause I could just add the 4 inside. But yeah, I want to demonstrate that it can change. So after this one, actually I'll print the test. Okay. So what this will do is it will print the variables value. Okay, so in this case it's a list of 1, 2, and 3. Then after I print, I will append number 4 to the end of test. Okay, so this is akin to after wait. So basically after I call this, the test will become 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like that. So this is what append means. Just adds the specified element to the end of the list. And so the element that you want to add is within the parentheses. So in this case, I want to add 4. Okay, then after that, I will print test again. Okay, and if I run this, you'll see the first time is just 1, 2, and 3. Then after I append, then become 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is what it means by mutable. Okay, it will change the variable or like the object itself. Okay, so actually all these reference types can also be considered objects. Okay, so is you are mutating the list itself. That's what it means. Okay, let me just close. Okay, next, tuple is immutable. Okay, that means the values cannot change. Okay, so how do you work with tuples? You have to create a new tuple lah. Okay, so how you do this is, example, I have a tuple. Sorry, wrong. Okay, 1, 3. Okay. List. New equals to test tuple plus. Oh, does this work? Got int instead. Okay, what if I add a comma here? Oh wait, I forgot to print. Oh wait. Right. What if I print new? Ah, okay, there. Yeah. So you have how you add elements is you just create a new tuple self. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me see if this works. Oh, can only concatenate. Not into. Whatever. Okay. So I guess that comma is needed. Okay, so then one last thing is list and tuple can be elements, actually can be accessed by index. Okay, so how you know in other languages, the arrays, you can have the square brackets that you can put in a number. Okay, so that corresponds to the position of the element. Okay, so in Python, the syntax is the same, and you can access it like first equals to, like example, a list. I can say 0. Okay, so the index in Python is also 0 index. So it starts at 0. Okay. And for tuple is also the same. Like that. Okay. And I can actually print all this. Print test 0. Okay. Yes, I can also print the test tuple 0. Okay. And if I run that, you can see is 1 and 1. Okay. Yeah, say 1 and 1. Okay. So one special thing about indexes in Python is you can put a negative index. Okay. So what does negative index mean? It actually means the last element. So from the back, basically. Okay. So -1 means that is the last element of the collection, like that. Okay. So if I put test tuple -1, then we actually get number 3. Same for list also. So if I put -1 here also, it will print number 4, since we appended the number 4. Then for here is print out number 3. Okay. And you can also do it with any number like -2. So -2, that means the second last. So in this case is number 2. Then -3 is the last, -4, so on and so forth. Okay. Okay. Okay, so last thing, set cannot be accessed by index. Okay. So then what are index? What are sets for? Okay, so it's like to check or to validate a certain variable, to check if like a certain value is in this set. Okay, so what you can do is like if 5 is in my set, then I can print true. Then if I say there, true. Okay. So what is this in operator? Okay, so basically in Python, it's very English-like, very close to English. Okay, so what this means is if the value 5 is in this set, then after that execute this block. Okay, and I'll explain the syntax of this later. Okay. Okay, so that's data types. Okay, and I've also covered variables. Okay, so next is basic I/O. Okay, so what is I/O? I/O means input and output. Input and output lah. Basically. So that's I/O. Okay, so I'll call this I/O. Okay. So first, we have already just seen the print function. Okay, so in Python, how you print to console is using the print function. Okay, so just type print, and then in the brackets, you can put in the string you want to print out. Okay, so like hello world, and what is this? Lost sys dot stdl. Cannot initialize sys standard strings. Oh, okay, I see. Because the file name is wrong. So, I mean, I cannot use this file name. Okay, so I'll just say input, output. I think io.py is a special file, so I can't use that. Okay, let's try this. Hello world. Okay. So the next is input. So how you receive user input from the console is using the input function, and this will actually would return the response from the user. So I can say this one is answer equals input. I capture the input into a variable called answer, and then inside the parentheses I can put the prompt. Okay, so I can say enter your name. Okay, like that. Then after that I can print answer. Okay, if I put like that and I say read, yeah, do like that. And you can see that actually the input field is just after the prompt itself. It's not on the new line. Okay, and that's the reason why I put the space so that there's space. If not, it will look like this. There is no spacing. Hello, who is that? Whatever. I think that's my friend. Okay, so I put like Edric, they will print out Edric. Okay, so this is how you capture input, and this is how you print out to the console. Okay. So another thing I want to cover is string formatting. Okay. So why we use string formatting is so that we don't have to concatenate the strings like if you have a very long string. So I can say something like print hello. After I'll put a percent sign s. So what does percent mean? Percent, the percent sign means to indicate that this is a placeholder, to format this whole thing. And s just denotes that it's a string. Okay, so after this, I'll just put another percent sign outside of the string, and I'll put in the variable down to replace into the placeholder. So I can say answer like that. Okay, so to note, right, this is only one way. There are other ways of formatting your strings also, and I will cover that after this. I mean, just after I print.
Edric.
Yes.
What? How do you do that sign again? That person sign or
Shift 5 is just
shift
the
5?
percent sign on your keyboard.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So if I enter my name, it will say hello Edric. See? Cause it formatted or like it replaced the placeholder. Okay. So other placeholders you can use is, so just now you see it seen is S, which means string. Next is D, which means integer. I don't know why they use D, but it's like that. Okay. Then after that, last one is F, which means float. And you can also do rounding off. So like example, you want to display money. Okay, so what you can say is 0.2 F. So it's percent 0.2 F. So what this 0.2 shows or indicates is I want to round off to the nearest two decimal places because of the 0.2. Okay. Then F is just a float. Okay. So if you put like 0.3 is 3 decimal, 4.4 is 4 decimal places, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's how that's the placeholders you use for different types. Okay. Another type of string formatting is called a string literal. Okay, so what is a string literal? It's basically another way to interpolate your um your variables into the string without concatenation. So what you do is at the start of the string, you type f, then the string. Okay. After how you include your uh the variable is curly braces. So you can see it's highlighted differently. Is in orange, and I can put answer in here. Okay. Then it will print the same. Okay, see, so it's hello, then Edric. It's the same. Okay. So string literal is precede with F like that. Just put F at the front. Then use curly. Okay, for this. Use the curly braces with variable name, or actually any Python expression also can. So I can just put 1 plus 2 and it will print out 3. There, hello 3. So you can, within the curly braces, you can put any Python expression. Okay. So I'll keep it an answer. Okay, so one thing to take note is input, the function input will return a string. In Python, the data type is called str. It just means string lah. Okay. So if you want to format it to like a number, example, like an integer example, I can say age equals to int. Use the keyword int. After within the parentheses, you put input. After the prompt, enter your age like that. Okay. So this will convert the string to an integer for you. But there's one thing to take note. If the string cannot be converted, like it's not a number, like it's just a normal sentence like that written in letters, then it will throw an error. So that one you need to do proper validation before you convert. So that's one thing to take note. Okay. So example is I will actually stop. Yeah, I'm gonna that. Yeah, actually then I'll like that. Okay. Then I'll show you enter your age. If I put in an actual number like 10, they will print out 10. But if I type in letters or special characters also, they will show value error, invalid literal, and also cannot convert lah, basically. Okay. So I will uncomment all this. Okay, where's my okay. Like that. Okay. Actually, one last thing to take note is cannot concatenate string and int together. So example is if you want to print example like your age is that plus age, something like this, he will show you expected type string got in instead, stuff like that. And say, oh wait, what? Indentation. Okay. There. Type error can only concatenate str, not int. Okay. And so that's why we use the formatting and the string literal. So we can work with numbers. Okay. And you cannot put a literal number also. You must put another string to concatenate. Okay. An example here is there. Your age is yeah, random jump. Okay. So this is the concatenation operator, but we don't usually use also because we got these other things. Alright, forgot to mention. This one did it. Is if you have many placeholders, like you have like that, after you have I don't know like 3, right? Then how you replace is outside of our string, the outside percent sign, you put another parenthesis and then you put in all your numbers here, okay, in positional order. So the first one relates to the first placeholder, and the second answer is the second expression relates to the second placeholder, then the third is the third. Okay. So this is how you do it. Don't forget the parentheses. If you exclude the parentheses, then it's different already. Okay. Actually, right, I'm gonna show you one last way. So if you have a string and you put a comma and then another string, right? You actually print both strings with a space in between. So you'll automatically place the string for you, unlike concatenation. And so you can put multiple strings like this also. And you can work with numbers this way also. So example, if I say your age is, I put a comma and then age, this will work. This won't throw an error. Okay. So to show you, I can put here. And I can also show you this one. So hello, Edric, then 1, 2, there. And the last one is your age is 18. And you can see it places the space for us. I can show you a better example. There. The string, then there is a space. It's automatic. Then the second string. And if I put in a third one, it will work. There. Then it will put the space in between all the strings. So that's another way to work with strings and printing also. Okay. So I will leave this out. Okay, so next, if else. Okay, so I'll create a new file called console flow. Okay, so first, if else statement. Okay, so why we use if else statement is so that we can check and validate stuff. Like example, our input. Okay. So what is the syntax for if else is just if. After that, your conditional. So example is like let's say one, two is more than one. After that, a colon, then press enter. Okay. So in Python, there is no curly braces. You have to use colon and indentation. Okay, so indentation is basically your tab. Just press tab and automatically its 4 spaces will be shown up. Okay, so indentation, the level doesn't matter, but must be consistent throughout the whole code block. Okay, so if I put 4 spaces in the first line, then the next line I only put 2 spaces, then there will be an indentation error. Okay, so must standardize your indentation. Okay, so the standard is usually 2 or 4 spaces, but I usually use 4 lah. Okay, also got 1, also got 3, but we don't really use. So it's either 2 or 4. But I think just for consistency, stick with 4. Okay. So then why is there this very squiggly line? Is there? It shows indent expected because I never really put any statement there. So I can say something like print correct. And if I run this, they will print correct. Okay. So why is the conditional? The conditional is basically something that can evaluate to a Boolean value. Okay. So this operator is a more than operator. There are also other operators like more than or equal to, less than or equal to. There's also double equal, which is just comparison. If 2 is equal to 1, okay. There's also not equal, but there is also another way to use this. Okay, so just now I said it's more like English correct. So I can also say if not 2 equals to 1. So basically is it will negate the expression here. Okay, so basically is 2 equal to 1? No, right? So this will evaluate to false. But since there is a not, this whole thing will become true. If you can understand lah, it's like that. Not false is equal to true. It's the same thing. Okay, so this is how to check for the opposite. If I want to check if this is not true, yeah, then I can use the if not. Okay, then not only this, I can also chain multiple expressions together using the logical operators and or. Okay, so it's just use the English words. No need the pipes or the ampersand like other languages. Okay, just put the English word and it's a special keyword also. Okay, so if I want to check if 2 is more than 1 and I don't know, 10 less than 11, something like this. Okay, so this will work. And one thing you realize is that there is no parentheses for the conditional because Python is redundant, no need. Okay. Okay, so then after if is the else statement. Okay. So how you use else is just type else, then colon, then press enter. Okay, so one thing you'll notice is I cannot do something like this. Okay, must be on the same level as the else. Okay, so I mean must be on the same level as the if, the same indentation. So this is how it works. Because at the same indentation level, this is considered in the same code block. Like example in Java is in the same curly braces. So I want it outside of the curly braces. And so I have to remove the indentation or like outdent like that. Okay. So this is the same as like putting outside the curly braces. Okay, so then else colon, then the 4 spaces or the 2. Then after that, I can say wrong like that. I can actually say something like age equals to input int actually, then input. Don't forget to convert input. Then upon I'll say enter your age to visit this website. I can say if age is more than or equal to 18, I can say enter. Then if not, I can say you are not allowed. And so the control flow here is if the condition is true, they will execute the code block, this one. Else that means if it's false, after execute this. Okay. So if I show you, I'm 18, they say enter. Okay, then if I say otherwise, if I'm like 17, then you are not allowed. Okay. So one last thing is if elif. Okay. So what is elif? So elif is actually just else if. It's basically to check multiple conditions. If like the first one or the earlier ones are not true, basically. So example, I can say like if age is more than 6, I can say you can write this right. Like example, like you are at a theme park, like that. Then there's an age limit. Okay. They can say, okay, if actually this one, I say 12. Yeah. Then I can say elif age more than, I don't know, 8. Then I can say you can write that other right. Then if not, then you cannot write any rights. Something like this. And so another usage of elif is also to chain your if else statement. Okay. So elif is always within this one. And it's different from just saying if like that. Different checks. Okay. So this one is implies different things lah, and it may break your code if you use wrongly. So if you want it to be the same like the same type of check, you put elif. Yeah. So if I say like that, it says you can write this right. Then if I check again, like I say 11, I can say you can write that other right. Yeah. Okay, so that's if elif, and then else to end. Okay, I mean you don't really need the else also. Yeah, but I mean usually you will use with else also. Okay.
Edric,
So I
got a
think,
question.
yeah.
So you remember just now you were mentioning about the not false equals to true.
Yeah, correct.
Can I conversely say not true equals to false? Does the program recognize that?
Yes, also correct.
Oh,
But then
okay.
if it evaluates to false, then the
Uh-huh.
else statement will execute. Okay, remember that. So
Okay.
if you want to check, example like if you want to negate this, you want to say if age is less than 18,
Mhm.
then if I want to do the same, I can flip the print statements around. Or I can
Yep.
say also if not less than 18. So this will evaluate the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, can thanks.
Okay, so we have covered if else. Okay. So now we'll cover loops. Okay, so in Java, in Python, there are two types of loops, for and while. Okay, there is no such thing as for each and do while. Since actually in Python, the default implementation of for loop is already for each. So what does this mean? Is I will show you the syntax for loop. Okay, so what you do is you type for, after you type a variable, example I in, then if you want to increment a number, you put range and then your maximum value. So in this case, I want to say like 10. Okay, then colon, then also indentation. Yeah. So basically, any code block in Python is indentation, replaced with indentation, not curly braces. So for loop and while loop, also the same. Colon, then after the colon, the next line must be the correct indentation already. Okay. So what actually does this mean? Okay. Okay, so firstly, the range function returns a list. Okay. So what does this mean? Okay, so if I put in 10, it will return 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It excludes 10. So this is excluded. Okay. And it actually can take in 3 values. Okay, so the first one is your start number. So I can say actually I want I to start from 2. Then I want to end it at 9. And then the last one is called the step, which is basically what is the difference between each element. So if I say the step is 2, so basically for this current example, the range will return a list from 2. After the step is 2, so it's plus 2, 4, 8. Then it stops at, 6, then 8. It stops at 8 because 10 is excluded. And it doesn't print 9 because it doesn't meet the step requirement of 2. So basically this is how much you plus to each element to get the next element. Okay. And so the default values for this, if I only put number 10, is actually 0 and the step is 1. Okay. So this is the same as just putting 10. Okay. And so if I put 10, it will return 0, 1, 2, after that dot 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 7, 8, 9. And now it reaches 9 because the step is 1. And so 8 plus 1 is 9. And it's still meeting the requirements. Okay. And so when I say for I in range 10, I'm saying for each I in the list, basically, then after that, or for each element in the list, I is equal to the current element in the iteration. Okay, so what does iteration mean? It's basically the cycle. Okay, so what the for loop does is basically when the program enters the for loop, I equals to 0. Then when it completes the next cycle, I equals to 1. Then the next cycle, I equals to 2. Then blah blah blah, I equals to 7. Okay, and so what does this imply is that you don't need to use the range function. You can, if you have a list, you can just, okay, example, Patrick, sorry, okay, example, I have a list. I can just iterate through the list. And what I mean by iterating through a list or a dictionary or a tuple or a set actually, yes, you can iterate through a set, is that I'm going through each element in the list or the tuple or the dictionary or the set. Okay. So if I do something like this, I can say for name in test. So basically what this means is if each name, for each name in the list test, example, I want to print out the name. Okay. So if I run this, I print out Edric, Salih, Shahid. And you see it will print out in the exact order. Okay. So that's the one, how to say, one feature of a list is it will keep the proper order. Because if you see, when you work with dictionaries, right, since it works on key value pair basis, you don't need to know the order, the exact order. You just need to know the key, then you know the value, correct? And so the order doesn't matter when you print it out. Yep. And also set, the order also doesn't matter because it also doesn't have an index. For tuple, the order also matters, so it will also print out the correct order. Okay. So this is what it means. And so at each cycle, your variable, which you declared here, will take on the value of each element in your collection, either list or tuple or set or dictionary. Okay, so that's a for loop. And in your, like when you want to imitate other languages like Java, the default implementation is you use the range. Then you say how you get the length of a collection is you use the len function. Then within the parentheses, you pass in the list. Okay, so this will return the length of the list. And since the range stops before the number here, which in this case is 3, so it's range of 3. So basically, it's only like that. 0, 1, 2. It will not get 3. Okay, so we can leave it like this. Okay, then I can say also print test. I can use the square bracket notation also. And then I can put in I like that. And so this is like what you would see in other languages. Okay. But of course, this implementation is a bit shittier. So I just prefer to just loop through the list itself. And so I don't have to use this ugly syntax. I can just use I or name or whatever. Or some people also use val for value or even v also for value. Okay. So I can say for value in test. Then I can print the value. Okay. But of course, to better see and for better maintainability, output name. So we can understand, oh, okay, so this is the name, in this, the name that represents each element in test. Okay, so I know this is a name. Okay. Because sometimes when you work with more complex programs, you don't really know what the variables mean. And so it's good to name the variables properly. Like if it's like a weight of all the trucks you own. Like example, you're trying to make like some dealership system like that, like a point of sale system or whatever. Then you can say something like for vehicle, something to represent each element. Or if you have a list of weights, I can say for weight or for W. But W is harder to read, so I would just say weight. Basically, it's good to name your variables appropriately so that you can understand better. Not only when you are writing the code, when you revisit the code next time, or if somebody else comes to check your code, then they can roughly understand what is going on. Instead of just like X, Y, Z, I don't know, what the I, J, K. If you like use this like one single letter variable names, right, it's very hard to understand. Like what is X, what is Y, what is Z, stuff like that. Then a lot of people like to use I, J, K. Sorry. Yeah, got very
Thank
long.
you.
Mommy, can lower? Lower.
Yeah.
Mommy.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Okay, never mind.
Okay, bro.
That's one. Okay, so a lot of programmers, like noob programmers, right, like to use IJK when they work with like multi-dimensional lists or arrays. So basically is list within a list. And so if they want to, like a matrix like that, so to represent matrices in programming, you use multi-dimensional arrays. And so how you access each element is using two indexes. One, usually they like to use I, is for the outermost one. So it's like each row like that. Then the J index is like for each column. So, something like this. Yeah. So they like to use all these funny names. So don't, okay. Try to be more logical. Don't use XYZ IJK. Yeah. Because they don't mean anything on its own. So it's harder to understand.
Slide.
SLI.
Okay,
SLID.
so another loop to cover, which is actually the only other loop we have, is the while loop. Okay, so how use is just the while. After that, you type in the conditional. So example like while true. And note, you also don't need brackets for the conditional like Java or the C family like C Sharp. Okay, so in Python very human readable. But since it's very human readable, and that's why when I go back to this one, it's very slow. Cause it is not optimized for the computer. Okay, remember? Yeah. Cause it's optimized for us to read, not for the computer to read. And that's why the execution time got a lot of overhead. Yeah.
How long does it typically take to execute?
Usually the difference is only like maximum like 1 second only.
Okay, that's not so much. That's not so bad.
Yeah, but if you have a big program, right, then yeah, you can get quite noticeable, but not the end of the world lah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's also other advantages why we use compiled language. One thing is that with compiled language, you can sort of hide the source code by just distributing the binary, which is like the .exe. Okay, so what this means is that how to say, you can protect your intellectual property for source code unless you are already making it open source, like if you publish it on GitHub or whatever. Okay, so open source is another thing. But if your code is proprietary, you want to protect it, you don't want outsiders to outside of your company to use your source code freely, right? Then this is a good way to protect it, because you can just upload the .exe file, the binary code lah basically, so you don't expose the source code. And it's also hard to decompile from binary, and so it's a good way to distribute proprietary software. And so with
Yeah.
Python, you cannot do this because there is no binary. It's just a Python. If you want to distribute your software, you have to distribute the source code also. Yeah. But I mean, if you look at it from another way, right? You also don't have to do that, cause the what you use Python for, like AI, machine learning, stuff like this, is you won't be even distributing the source code anyway. You don't have to share it anyway. So is not really a huge blow to using Python. Yeah. But if you see like compiled languages, the applications of compiled languages, like games like that, or what like Windows or desktop software, stuff like that, then yeah, then it's also good to protect your source code just by showing the binary. Like so, like example, Minecraft, Unity games, those are, you distribute only the compiled version, not the source code. And that's why games use compiled language so that people can't just steal your IP, your intellectual property. Yeah. Yep.
So Edric, so that means, right, most open source projects, does that mean that they use Python?
No, not necessarily. You
Oh.
can also make any project actually open source. You don't necessarily have to use Python. You can also use Java or what. It depends on your preference and also what you are most comfortable with.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, no problem. And also, a lot of other people use other languages also. So if you wanna create a library, open source library for them, then you need to code in that language also. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, that was my father. Okay, so let's go back to while loops. Okay. So the while loop is basically as long as the condition is true, they will continue running. Unless you purposely break out of it yourself. Okay. So yeah. Okay, an example is maybe while num is less than 10, I can say like that. You can say num equals 0. I want to print each num. Okay. Then this will work lah. If I run this. Oh, never mind. Shit. Forgot to increment. Okay. So if you want to use while loops instead of for loops, right, to iterate through a list or whatever to increment number, right, is more tedious because it doesn't increment for you. Okay, so what you can say is num plus equals to 1. Okay. In Java, in Python, don't have the num plus plus. This is not valid syntax. So you have to use plus equals. Okay, then you say you print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And with while true loops, I can also create a program like that. Let's say option equals to input. Enter your option. Like, let's say Q is for quitting. Then P is for print H. And let's say okay, H. Then after that, name. Okay, then I can do if option equals to H. Sorry. Since it's a string, yeah. Okay, then I can just print H. Then if elif option equals to name, I can print name, then else break. Okay. So in Python, the break keyword means is to break off the loop completely. Don't even go to the next iteration or the next cycle. Okay. Then another keyword for loops is continue. Okay. So this is the same in Java. Is once you hit this, you will say you will continue to the next loop. And to demonstrate this, below here, I will actually put a print hello from down here. I don't know, something else. Okay, so this one has continue, this one doesn't. So if I put name as my option, you print my name, and also you will print here. Okay, and so if I run 18 add, enter your option. If I say age, you just print 18. But if I print name, you print Shahid. What? Oh, okay, maybe the variable got reassigned, and so I will use a different name. Input name. Then here I'll say input name. Okay, so name, the print add, and hello from down here. Okay, then if I press Q, or actually any other thing, they will quit. Yeah, so you can create like continuous programs like this using while true. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. And so if I didn't have this brick here, they will just keep running forever. Yeah. So if you use while true, remember that you can break out of it. Nice beer.
Okay. You drinking beer?
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So last topic for today is functions. Okay, so let me create a file called functions. Okay. So what is a function? Okay, so have you heard of the mathematics functions?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So basically, a function is a piece of code that takes in inputs or not, doesn't have to, and returns an output or multiple outputs also. You can do that in Python lah. In Python, a function can return multiple values. So I'll show that later. Okay. So basically, it's a piece of code that takes in inputs and returns outputs. Okay. I mean, doesn't really have to lah. It's not a strict mathematical function. It's a programming function. Okay. So how do you define or declare a function? Okay, so you use the keyword def. So this stands for define. Then after def, you type the function name. So I can say my func And also note the convention in Python is also underscore separated words and also all lowercase. Okay. Then after that, you press a colon, then enter. Okay. Then so within the parentheses are your inputs or your arguments. We call them arguments or parameters. Basically, arguments are your inputs to the function. So example, I can say name. Okay. So my func takes in a name, which is a string. Okay, so what is this colon? This colon means that I want to annotate this argument with the type of string. So this is basically does nothing lah, but it's a good way to annotate your functions so that when you see the function, it's easier to see what types it is looking for. Okay. Then if I want to put multiple arguments, I put a comma. They can say another the argument. I can put a colon also. I can say int. Okay. Then also Python provides a feature of functions that the arguments can take a default value. Okay, so what is a default value? It's basically if you call the function without passing in that argument, then the default value will be taken. So example, for name I can say do this. Can I do this? It is? Okay. Wait, what? Non-default follows default. Okay. Never mind. This one also use a default. This one I'll say 0 like that one. Okay, 0. Then this one I'll say nil. Like that. Okay. So this is how you specify a default value. Just put an equal sign, then the default value. Okay. So then if I want to remove this, actually also can. Because then the default argument follows the default argument comes after the non-default. Okay. Okay, I'll say print name and also print age. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you realize this function doesn't return anything. So this is equivalent to a void function in Java. Okay. So if I call this function, I can do stuff like this. I can pass in a name, but I don't have to pass in an age. Okay. And so this is how you call a function. Okay. You just type in the name of the function and then put parentheses. Okay. Then if the function expects any arguments, then you can put them within the brackets. Okay. Even if the function doesn't expect any value, you have to put empty parentheses like that to tell that it's a function call. Okay, you need the parentheses. So I'll just pass in add. Then also, because of the default argument, I still can pass in an age. So let's say I pass in 18. And if I run this, we print add 0, add 18. Okay. And so if your arguments are not default and you leave it out, then it will throw an error. It will highlight to you even parameter name unfilled. And so if I try to run this, type error, my func, missing one, required positional argument. Okay. So like in my Java course, a positional argument is basically related to the position of the arguments. So first is name, then age, correct? So you have to pass in name first, then age. But you can pass in by keyword also. So example, I can pass in name equals add. So this is something called keyword arguments. I pass in through keyword, not by position. So this is an example of position. Name first, then the second is age. Okay. For this is different. Okay. And if you use keyword arguments, you cannot use positional argument after that. So if I pass in name equals add, I can pass in 80 or what 19, and you say positional argument after keyword argument. So this is not allowed. Keyword, sorry, positional argument must come before the keyword argument. So something like 18, like that. Oh, name. Okay. Something like, okay lah. Like that. Yep, that is it. Okay, so I've gone through that already. Okay. So then I can also return values. So example, like what should I do? Define. Let's say okay, max in list. Okay, then it takes in a list. Let's say num list. I don't want to use the word list because it's a built-in keyword. Is to there shadows built-in name list. Okay, so what is the built-in name for? Is to convert tuples and sets into list. Okay, so it's a conversion type of function also. Okay, so I will use numList instead. Okay, so what does max in list does? It will, okay, so first I will define a local variable called max. Max is also a built-in function, is to find the maximum of two values. So if I pass in 1 and 2, it will return 2. Basically, it will return the larger of the two values. So that's the built-in function max. Okay, so in order to not override that built-in function, I will use max num. Then I will initialize it to the first element in my list. Then after that, I will iterate through for num in num list. Okay, I will iterate through all the elements in num list, and I will compare them with max num. So if num, if the current number is more than the maximum, after that set the new maximum to be the current number. Okay. Then else, no need to do anything. Okay, then after I loop through already, right? After I exit the loop, or like after the looping has finished, I want to return the max num. Okay, so this is what I can do. And so how do I capture this return value? I will use a variable, or I can just print it straight away already. Okay, so I can say print max in list, and I'll pass in a list of numbers, and I can say 1, 4, 2, 10, I don't know, 10, 11, 14, 6, 5, 3, 5, 2, 6, 7, I don't know, 13, like that. And if I run this, we print 14. Yeah. Okay. So this is one way to do it. If you want to separate out the print call and the capture of value, I can say like max num equals to max in list, and I can pass in the same exact list. Okay. X, and then can just print max num. So this is equivalent to just now. I just separate out the statements. Okay. So the reason why you want to separate out is if you need the reference to the result in a later portion. If not, you can just combine it into one line. So no need to even save to max num. Just print max in this, that's that, done. You can save one line of code. Yep. Okay, so now I will cover the return multiple values. Okay, so example, I have a function, let's say ask for name and age. Okay, so it's quite a long name, but I want to explain what it does. Okay, so basically what this function does is it will get input of the name. Let's say enter your name and this one actually okay, no, I'll leave there. Then I can get age also. And don't forget to convert it. So you can use int. I also can use float to convert to a float. And I can use str to convert to a string. Okay. So you can just use it. Then after I can return name, comma, age. Okay. So now I'm returning both values. How I capture the return values is I can use two variables in the same line with commas. So I can say retrieve name equals to retrieve name and retrieve age equals to ask for name and age. Okay. And so because this returns name and age, I need to capture with two variables. I can also capture a third variable, and I can say num like that. Okay. So I will keep it like that. And I can actually shorten this down. I can remove the variable declaration and I can put it straight in here. I can say this one. I can take out also. Then I put here. Then I can remove all this. And so I've condensed all of this into one line. Okay, and if I run this, okay, let me put this. Enter your name, add, enter your age, 18. I mean, then it does nothing lah, cause I never do anything with the variables here. But if I try to print it, print, okay, so let me now show you the string formatting. I can say like that, retrieve name, comma, retrieve age. It's like so much easier. Okay, then when I print, add 18, add comma 18. There. So this is how you work with multiple return values and how you capture them. Okay. Okay. So actually that covers it for the first lesson. Do you guys have any questions?
No, no questions, sir. But
Sorry, say again.
I will need to review whatever you.
Okay, can. Yeah. I will upload it to YouTube. Then you guys can see. Okay. So if nobody has any questions, then I will give you guys the homework. Okay, so your homework is to implement a function which takes in a list and returns the largest number. Okay, never mind. I did it for you. Lmao. Okay, never mind. I'll give you guys another homework. Okay. So, let's see.
Easy one, sir.
Sorry?
Easy, easy,
Easy one.
easy to
Sorry, you are a bit soft.
yeah, just easy ones first, and then we'll progress to the harder homeworks.
Okay, okay. Okay. Okay, so this is your work. Right. Program. Let's see. Okay. Write a program that prints out the even numbers from 0 to 100. Okay, something simple. Then I will check your works the next lesson. Can?
Okay.
Okay, so remember this one. Here I will paste this into the classroom. Okay, then before we end, would like to know when the next time you guys are free.
So I only have a
Sorry, you're a bit soft.
yeah I only have a free time for the next 3 days. After that, I need to go back to office, and I'm gonna. So anytime within the next 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, fine. But tomorrow we already have Java, right?
Yeah. Okay. So then is Sunday okay?
Yep.
Okay. So Sunday is afternoon or nighttime better?
I'm okay with both lah. It's fine.
Afternoon.
Sorry?
Afternoon.
Afternoon. Okay. So then we'll set it for 3 p.m. also.
Okay, can.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.